Hey guys, Nate here with Nuview Trust Company. Today we're going to talk about what is a self-directed IRA and why you should have one. First, what is a self-directed IRA? Self-directed IRA, the term self-directed is just a marketing term. IRAs, or individual retirement accounts, have been around since 1974. IRAs are all governed by the same set of rules. You can invest in almost anything with your IRA. It just depends on what company manages your IRA for you. So let me give you an example. If you have an IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab, those are licensed securities brokers. They sell you investments. It doesn't make them bad guys, but it does limit you as to what you're allowed to invest in when you have an IRA with them. Typically, you're only going to be allowed to buy and hold stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and CDs. This is what most people are used to investing in because it's the only option they're ever shown. IRAs in general can own anything outside of two investments: life insurance contracts and collectibles. Anything else is fair game when it comes to ownership with your retirement account. So you can actually own in your IRA or retirement account things like rental property, real estate, real property, land, commercial property, investments into promissory notes secured by real property, investments into private companies, startup, private equity, investments into cryptocurrency. The list goes on and on and on. The most important thing when it comes to your IRA or investment decisions is that you invest in something that you are knowledgeable about and you invest in something that you understand. So why would you want a self-directed IRA? Well, remember, a self-directed IRA allows you to invest in things outside of the traditional investment market. It allows you to invest in what are called alternative assets. Alternative assets include all sorts of things, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when you invest in things outside of the traditional market, a funny thing happens. There's a lot of different benefits that you get by investing your IRA or retirement accounts into alternative assets. Let's take real estate, for example. Real estate is a really good investment in an IRA because A, it provides you multiple streams of income. If it's a rental property, you get rents from a renter. If you buy in the right area and hold it long enough, you also get appreciation. Real estate's also the largest segment of our economy. It's an investment that's going to be around forever. So you're not worried about there being an evaporation of that investment activity. You're always going to have a need for real estate. But what real estate also gives you, what a lot of alternative assets give you, is that it's tangible. The investment is something you can drive by, touch, and feel. You're not going to have the half of its value decreased because someone put a tweet online and dropped the value of it because it's not a stock, it's not a mutual fund. It's a tangible real estate asset that can be passed on to multiple generations. The other thing self-directed IRAs allow you to do is just be more diversified in your investment portfolio. I'm not against owning stocks or mutual funds. I think those are great investments. But if you're really looking for true diversification, maybe you should look at holding some paper assets and some alternative assets. I will tell you, there was an article done by Forbes in March of 2020. They talked about this and they did a study about everybody that has IRAs. Out of the $10 trillion that sits in individual retirement accounts today, only 2% of that is self-directed, meaning only 2% of $10 trillion of those IRAs hold alternative assets. But when you look at the IRAs valued above $5 million, 25% of the assets held in those large IRAs are alternative assets. So the rich and wealthy are already keen to this, that the ability to hold alternative assets can make life-changing events happen in your individual retirement accounts. Another benefit that not only a self-directed IRA gives you, but just an IRA in general, is that IRAs by definition are tax-exempt trusts. They grow differently than money that we grow as an individual. If I'm growing my money as an individual, I'm a taxpayer, just like you're a taxpayer. I buy and sell investments as a tax-paying individual. I don't get to keep all of my profit because I have to pay Uncle Sam after each and every year. So if I make $100,000 investing in real estate, or $100,000 investing in crypto, or $100,000 investing in a startup company with my money, Uncle Sam gets about 40% of that. And I only get to reinvest, say, 60% of it, so my money grows slow. But when you talk about an IRA is a tax-exempt trust, meaning that when you buy and sell real estate in an IRA, or you buy and sell cryptocurrency in an IRA, or you buy and sell anything in an IRA, there's no capital gains tax whatsoever. You can make the same $100,000 in an IRA and you get to reinvest all $100,000 into the next investment, into the next year, and so on and so on. So your money grows faster exponentially by taking Uncle Sam out of the equation on an annual basis. But if you use an IRA like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k or a health savings account or an education savings account, not only is the growth completely tax-free, but if you plan it out right, the distributions you take from that account are also tax-free and penalty-free for life. So I mentioned a few accounts. Let's talk about the types of accounts that can be self-directed. We actually have 7 types of accounts that can be self-directed just here at Nuview. First, you have your personal plans that can be self-directed. You have your traditional IRA and your Roth IRA. A lot of people have traditional IRAs because maybe it started as a 401k at a job you worked at. Maybe it started as a 403b or a TRS. And when you left that job or you left that profession, that employer-sponsored plan rolled into, by default, a traditional IRA. Traditional IRA is just a pre-tax bucket of money and you grow it tax-deferred as you invest. But you can also self-direct a Roth IRA, and a Roth IRA is very powerful if you want to invest not only tax-deferred, but take distributions completely tax-free. Other plans that can be self-directed as well are employer plans. This is really, really advantageous for those of you who are self-employed. You might work a W-2 job and still have some side business. You might have a side hustle. You might be a real estate investor on the side, or you are just self-employed from the start. CPAs, attorneys, real estate investors, realtors, mortgage brokers. If you're working for yourself, self-directed employer plans might be the way that you want to go. We have SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, or even your individual 401k. The difference with these plans that is different than the personal plans is that you can make large contributions to these plans based on your income. Much more of a money dump you can put into these plans, and once you put it in the plan, the question is, what do you invest in? You can self-direct employer plans just like you self-direct your personal plans, and they can own everything from real estate to cryptocurrency to stocks. Now let's talk about the final category, and I call this, would you like fries with that? This is the specialty plans. Specialty plans consist of your HSA or health savings account, and we also have what's called a Coverdell Education Savings Account, or a CESA. An HSA is one of the greatest gifts out there. Now, for those of you who have an HSA, you probably understand some of the tax benefits, but there's a lot of tax benefits to a health savings account. First, there are some qualifying criteria. You have to have what's called a high deductible health plan, an HDHP. Call your health insurance provider, ask them if your plan is HSA compatible. And as long as you're not a dependent on someone else's tax return or on Medicare, you can have what's called an HSA or health savings account. Tax benefit 1, when you make contributions to the HSA, it's fully tax deductible. Tax advantage 2, when you invest the HSA or you invest the funds in the HSA, it grows completely tax deferred, so you can grow money exponentially. And tax advantage number 3, when you decide to take distributions out of the HSA, if you're using it to pay for qualified out-of-pocket health expenses, the distributions are tax-free and penalty-free for life. So you get tax deductions when you make contributions to the HSA, you get tax-free growth as you invest it, and the distributions are tax-free and penalty-free provided you use the money to pay for qualified health expenses like vision, dental, prescriptions, and all the things you have to pay for anyways. It's the best of both worlds. And it can be self-directed. And the CESA, the Coverdell Education Savings Account, the only education savings account that you can set up for kids or grandkids or even anybody's kids. But you can self-direct these accounts, the only education savings accounts that can be self-directed, and the distributions out of the Coverdell Education Savings Accounts can be used to pay for tax-free qualified education expenses for the beneficiary of that account. So for the beneficiary who is the child. These distributions can be used to pay for tax-free any qualified education expense from kindergarten all the way through college. So this would be things like tuition if they're going to private school, uniforms if they're not going to private school, books, tutoring, iPads, computers. Even your home internet bill can qualify as a qualified education expense that can be paid with tax-free dollars out of the profit made in a child's Coverdell Education Savings Account. These are all tax-advantaged accounts that can be invested individually or invested together through partnerships, and you get Uncle Sam out of your pocket. Now, here's the big question. What do you invest in? Here's the powerful thing about self-directed IRAs, is you get to make the investment decisions. At Nuview Trust, we don't have investments to sell. So in our account agreement, it simply states we'll hold anything the IRS allows, but you tell us what the investment's going to be. We'll still act as the administrator, we'll still sign off on the investment, but you have to find the investment. So this is a very, very powerful tool for those of you who are entrepreneurial enough to go out and find your own investment, or you have a skill set that bodes well and it's better than what you can do in the stock market. For example, if you're a real estate investor, I'm pretty sure that you can make more money buying and selling real estate than you can buying and selling stocks. If you're a stockbroker, it's the opposite. So you got to ask yourself the question, what are you knowledgeable about? Any investment is a risk, but you reduce your risk over the long period of time. You stub your toe less when you invest in what you know best. So here's some of the things that you can invest in with a self-directed IRA that we see most commonly. Well, we see a lot of real estate investments. That could be fee simple real estate, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental property. It could be a condo, it could be a triplex, it could be land, it could be a commercial property, it could be multifamily property. The list goes on and on. It could be any real estate investment you can think of or do personally can be owned inside of an IRA. If you want to be more passive with your retirement assets, you can lend. You can lend through promissory notes secured by real estate. That's just using your IRA like a bank. Think about lending your money out to a real estate investor and the money's secured by that property, and you sit back and collect interest payments on a monthly basis. I call that mailbox money. And by the way, since it's in your IRA, it's tax-free mailbox money. So all different types of notes, secured notes, unsecured notes, net profit notes, shared appreciation notes, the list goes on and on. And if you want to stay passive, you can also invest in other real estate investments that other people are putting together. So syndications, a large grouping of IRAs that are buying apartment buildings or strip mall centers. You're really not restricted as to what you're allowed to invest in. And a lot of people think this is thinking outside the box. This isn't thinking outside the box. The rules have been the same ever since IRAs were created in 1974. This video is just giving you the reality that the box is bigger than you think. So what's the next step? How do you take this information and start applying this to your own self-directed accounts and start making tax-free investments or tax-free growth, not only for your lifetime, but the lifetime of your heirs? Your next step is email us at iraspecialist@nuviewtrust.com. I've got IRA specialists that are well-trained and well-versed on everything self-directed IRAs that are willing to help you answer all of your questions, find out what accounts are best for you, and get you on the path to financial freedom through self-direction. Make sure to ask the IRA specialist what current promotions that we have going on to make it easy and painless for you to get an account started. And if you're not quite ready to start, that's okay. Follow us on Facebook. We go live with continuing education every Wednesday. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications when we post new content about new investment options, new rules when it comes to self-directed IRAs, and new ways that we can get Uncle Sam out of our pocket.